Good morning, Tuesday morning. Let's share the screen. Daily work. That sounds like a plan. All right, it is day 31, Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. You got your color coordinated key there. Reading pages 10 through 17 of the Declaration of Independence in translation, what it really means. And you turned in your book reports. By the way, I had a question about the book reports. Both book report forms are on the same document inside the module. They're not two separate documents. It's just one document, both book reports in there. So be thinking about topics. Start looking for nonfiction books about topics you like for your expository essay group project. Let's get rid of that little period there. It's not needed. So use all the clever sites that have books available for checkout. And there's a lot of them. Be thinking, writing that explains something, how something works, and how to do something. So a topic that you can do all of those things, where you can explain it, explain how it works, explain how to do something, explain how to make something, and instructions to label drawings. Might not have all of these areas, but be thinking broadly right now about big topics and how you can expose them in expository writing and explanatory writing by explaining them. Two new words to write sentences for: diagram and disappointed, in one or two sentences. A new video on apostrophes that we'll be looking at together, and a new place to practice using apostrophes. Instead of possession today, it's contractions. Do I know where to put the apostrophe for contractions like cannot into can't, have not into haven't, I am into I'm. Day 2 of the Everglades, that wonderful place. I've only been there once and I've lived here for 15 years. Got to get back down to the Everglades. It's quite a habitat, quite a geographical phenomenon. So as you know, we're studying our government and the history of the United States, a little bit of it anyway. We're on the Declaration of Independence. And again, I have the original there and the simplified there. Today, we're going to be looking at a brand new part of the Declaration. There's the original, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. I'll read the rest when I read the book and the simplified version. And what do you think these lines mean? Now, again, if you just read it by yourself there, you might not exactly know what they mean. But by the time we've talked about it together and read it, you should be able to have a really good answer as to what those lines mean in terms of citizens of the United States of America. So when are we going to do the geography games? Have you chosen one? I'll be asking today or tomorrow if you would like to participate in the World Geography Games. We'll create a small group, and actually I don't know exactly how we're going to set it up, but it will be in a separate Teams meeting, and we'll have people competing and an audience to view it. Sounds like fun. Gifted block topic. Again, your Renzulli should already be finished. And I have something for you to fill out the profile question form in the module today and submit. And I'll go over that in just a few minutes. Gifted block puzzles and riddles. 3 consecutive days, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And the word, an 8-letter word, and if you didn't get this, it's okay. It's a tough one. But you got the word starting, and watch this. Starting, take away a T. Staring, take away an A. String, take away an R. Sting, take away a T. Sing, take away a G. Sin, take away an S. In, take away an N. I. Wow. So an 8-letter word that can, one word, one letter take away, and you can reduce it all the way down to a one-letter word. And the trick question, how many seconds? Well, you've got January 2nd and January 22nd, February 2nd and February 22nd, 24 in all. Today is what word looks the same backwards and upside down? And how many months have 28 days? And what has 13 hearts but no other organs? 13 hearts, but no liver, no pancreas, no lungs, no brain. And the fun fact, when the Declaration of Independence was read aloud in New York City, it started a riot. George Washington read the document aloud in front of City Hall. A lively crowd cheered, and later that day tore down a nearby statue of George III. You're going down, George III. And they toppled his statue. And again, here is the book that we'll be reading momentarily. Let's stop this share, and I'm going to open up the survey. So to group you properly, I'm looking at Renzulli results, but I'm also really interested in this one that I created. Student Survey for Informational Expository Writing and Reading Small Groups Project. Wow, that's quite a title, Mr. B. I know, but you can handle it. Put your name right there. All it means is it's going to be a project where you're explaining something that you really care about, and you research it together with a little group. So we got rankings here. 4 means that is the perfect topic for me, Mr. B. That's a good one. That's okay. Not really, and no way. 0 interest whatsoever. So right next to these, just put your, for example, if I were doing this, I could just put, I don't really care too much about amusement parks, so I put 1. All right, I love animation. So if that's going to be a topic for me, I will put 4. It's perfect for me. I love animation. So you go down through there: amusement parks, animation, cartoons, architecture, buildings and houses, art, painting, sculpture, pottery, computer technology, fashion, clothing, and jewelry, fiction books, favorite authors, games like board games, chess, checkers, Parcheesi, Clue, history, movies, nature, pets, playing sports, poetry, science, swimming, hiking, camping, beach, the performing arts, playing music, singing, dancing, acting, travel, vacations, TV shows, watching sports, writing stories. And one that did not make it on there, I'm just going to add it now since I haven't uploaded it yet. Video. Wonder how many of you care about those. If you think of another area of interest listed here, I really did try to think of big, broad topics across the board. So please rank those according to what you like the most and what you like the least with this key right here, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. And I will group you with other like-minded people, and you're going to be doing an unbelievable job working in small groups to gather information and to develop a research project and essay with directions, instructions, the whole kit and caboodle. That's an old expression meaning everything that you can imagine. All right, let's get into our history book, the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence continued that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles, in organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. Fancy. One long sentence again. They love those long sentences. Governments should protect the rights of their people. Governments get their powers from the people they serve. If a government fails to protect its citizens, then the citizens should change the government. Citizens should do this for really good reasons, not just for silly ones. One way that governments protect people is through fair laws. Today, US citizens can change the government by voting, but the colonists did not have that right. They were not represented in England in the Parliament and with the king. There was no representation. And that was one of the statements. Taxation without representation, we will not have it. If you're going to tax us, then we should have a voice in the laws that are made for us. Seems fair. The Declaration of Independence continued, and accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. Wow, Thomas Jefferson, he was a fancy writer. That's just a couple, well, actually, that might be like 3 or 4 sentences in there. People often choose to suffer instead of making changes. Colonists have tried to be patient, but their suffering must end. Enough is enough. The colonies have the responsibility to end Great Britain's unfair control, and King George III has a history of cruelty. He is a tyrant. Let the world know what he was doing and has been doing. Wrong. The colonists asked the king for fair treatment. He never listened. He acted like their opinions didn't matter. He was the king, and they were way far away, the little bitty colonies over there in their colony world, and he was great big King of Great Britain, the power of the sea. So he just felt that he could treat them however they wanted, and they had enough. The top 5 complaints. At this point, Jefferson and the colonists included a long list of complaints about King George III. Instead of the whole list, here are the main points. He fired leaders who didn't agree with him or do what he said. He didn't punish British soldiers for hurting or even killing the colonists. He made the colonists give food and shelter to British soldiers. He forced the colonists to join his navy. There's one more that's hiding on me. Come on. Trying to get that thing to go down. It is impossible. Oh, goodness. There we go. He didn't give colonists any say in making laws. So those are the top 5 complaints. By the way, back then, if you had a house in one of the colonies and a British soldier wanted to spend the night, you had to let him in and give him room and board. The Declaration of Independence continued. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Through all of this poor treatment, we tried to work with the king. We sent letters to the king asking him to respect our rights. He ignored us. Instead, he just made things worse. The king is a cruel leader. He is not worthy of ruling the colonies. That's basically what it meant. The colonies call the king a tyrant. A tyrant is a leader who uses his power harshly. In this letter, colonists tried to gain more rights from Great Britain. The First Continental Congress met in 1774 in Philadelphia to address concerns about British laws. So this built up over the course of several years of unfair treatment. And we'll get into that when we are together. The real nature of the colonies and how they felt it was their right to break away from Great Britain. All right, I think there's one more page. Yes, one more page. Let's go back to it. There it is. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislator to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. I never get tired of reading this because it's so beautifully written. And I've read it many, many times. We didn't go to just the king about these problems. We also tried to talk to the British people and their lawmakers. We reminded them why we left Europe and came to America. Many of us came from Great Britain. We asked for their help because we were brothers, but they would not listen either. So now we must separate ourselves from all of Great Britain. We are now enemies at war. When the war ends, we will be friends once again. When the Declaration of Independence was written, the Revolutionary War had already been going on for nearly 15 months, over a year. The first shots of the war were fired at Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts on April 19th, 1775, which is regarded as the start of the war. So over a year before the Declaration, we were already in the midst of battle. Many of the colonists considered themselves British. It was difficult to cut ties with their homeland. And it really was a tough decision because many of these colonists had family, cousins, brothers, sisters, fathers, grandparents, friends, acquaintances, business people in England that were their friends or relatives. And they were making a decision that was going to be very important. In fact, a good chunk of the colonists, especially the ones that were wealthy and super connected with the UK, didn't want to break away. They were called Tories. They were called Tories because they were going to remain loyal to the crown. And things didn't turn out very good for them because Great Britain lost the war. So many of them acted like after the war that no, I was never really for it. I wanted to be free too, but many of them had to move back to England because the colonists who now had become the United States of America were not very tolerant of these people that would not back them in their desire to break away. So let's stop the share there. Can't wait to see you all. Stop the recording, and we'll see you soon.